Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Watch my video and subscribe my channel. Taylor cannot let toxic Brooke win. The bold and the beautiful recap for Monday, September 8th, shows that Luna Nozawa sent a mask photo to Will Spencer, while Taylor Hayes refused to allow nasty Brooke Logan triumph. On Monday's B&B episode, Thomas Forrester urged Brooke to acknowledge that she had lost Ridge Forrester and that Taylor had finally triumphed. Brooke objected owing to what had happened in Italy, but Thomas insisted that Taylor was the lady Ridge proposed to. Of course, Brooke corrected Thomas, pointing out that Taylor, not Ridge, popped the question. Despite this, Thomas was adamant that his parents would marry and refused to let Brooke deprive their family of any more time together. Meanwhile, Taylor suspected Ridge was ending things due of Brooke, so she complained about Brooke and Eric Forrester getting inside his brain. Taylor refused to let Ridge abandon their engagement, insisting that toxic Brooke would only let him down again and emphasizing that she would not let him do this. Will opened up to Katie Logan in the Forrester design office about how tough it was to keep the mystery woman a secret from Electra Forrester. But Katie understood that he didn't want her to be upset and suggested he put what occurred behind him. At Lee Finnegan's house, she could tell Luna was fantasizing about Will again. So she basically told her to quit wanting something she couldn't have. Luna seemed oddly hopeful about getting another opportunity with Will, but she didn't say anything further to Lee. Although Lee intended for Luna to pursue 2 jobs and overcome her troubled past, Luna secretly desired to become a Spencer and never have to work again. When Luna was alone, she smiled mischievously as she handled a pregnancy test box, eventually texting Will a photo of the mask she wore that night. Will was uneasy as he read the wording, which stated that it would be kept private. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, the news of Luna's survival will shake things up as it spreads. Taylor Hayes could feel the walls of Forrester Creations closing in on her as the weight of Ridge Forrester's indecision pressed down like an anvil of betrayal. And though her heart pounded with a mixture of desperation and fury, she stood firm with her chin raised, her voice trembling yet defiant as she declared she would not, under any circumstances, allow toxic Brooke Logan to worm her way back into Ridge's heart after everything they had rebuilt, after the proposal she had fought so hard to extract from him, even if it had been her who knelt before him in vulnerability rather than the other way around, because in her mind, that ring represented a reclamation of decades lost to Brooke's chaos, her endless betrayals, her repeated sabotage of Taylor's dreams of a stable family with Ridge. And Taylor wasn't about to watch all of it be undone by a single whisper in Ridge's ear from Brooke or a conveniently timed memory of their so-called destiny. And so, as Thomas Forrester stormed into the design office earlier that morning, his jaw tight, his tone clipped yet charged with righteous conviction, he told Brooke to her face that she had lost, that the game was over, that this wasn't another one of her miraculous comebacks where Ridge would run from the altar to her arms, because this time his parents were meant to be married and the proposal, no matter how it had unfolded, meant something. It meant a future without Brooke's meddling. It meant stability for him, for Steffi, for Thomas, for their grandchildren, and he made no apologies for wanting that, for fighting for that, even as Brooke threw Italy in his face, bringing up how Ridge had looked at her under the Tuscan sun, how he had saved her from the water that night, and how their hearts had collided once again in the moonlit aftermath, a moment Brooke swore had reignited their eternal bond. But Thomas scoffed, reminding her that saving someone from drowning wasn't a wedding vow. It was an instinct, an act of human decency, not a declaration of love. And he refused to let her spin it otherwise. He refused to let her steal more time from their fractured family and elsewhere in that sprawling fashion house where dreams were stitched and destinies often unraveled. Taylor found herself cornering Ridge in a desperate plea that wasn't quite begging, but wasn't far from it either. Her voice sharp with accusation as she pointed fingers at Eric Forrester for poisoning Ridge's mind, at Brooke for never respecting boundaries, for slithering back the moment things seemed rocky, and Ridge, torn and weary, tried to reason with her, saying he didn't want to hurt her, that he didn't want to continue down a path built on expectation rather than unshakable truth, But Taylor, oh Taylor, she clutched his hand, her nails digging into his palm, and she said the words she'd been rehearsing in her mind like a war chant. I will not let you throw this away because of her. I won't let toxic Brooke win. Not again. Her words echoed down the hall as if the very walls of Forrester Creations carried the ghosts of past betrayals, past triangles, past nights where Ridge had wavered between the two women who had defined his adult life. And as she stormed out to collect herself, determined to find another way to secure what she believed was hers, the rest of the Forrester and Spencer web tangled on the fringes with its own brand of intrigue. For in the design office, young Will Spencer confided in Katie Logan, the mother who had always tried to protect him from the pitfalls of the powerful, that keeping secrets from Electra Forrester was becoming unbearable, that the weight of the mystery woman from that fateful night still gnawed at his conscience, and Katie, ever the nurturing yet pragmatic soul, suggested that perhaps he could simply let it go, bury it, focus on the future rather than the scandalous past. But Will's eyes betrayed him, flickering with the image of Luna Nozoa, the woman who had somehow slipped under his skin, the one with the mask, the one whose presence lingered like forbidden perfume, and far across town, at Lee Finnegan's austere, meticulously curated home, Luna sat on the edge of the sofa like a restless flame, her fingers twitching as Lee lectured her with the cold precision of a surgeon about hard work, about clawing her way out of the shadows of her messy lineage, about getting 2 jobs if she must, because nothing in this world would be handed to her, certainly not the name Spencer, certainly not the luxury she fantasized about. And yet, when Lee's back was turned, when the room was empty save for the tick of the clock and the scent of antiseptic still clinging to the air, Luna's lips curled into a mischievous smile as she retrieved the small box tucked in her purse. A pregnancy test, its plastic edges sharp against her palm as if it carried the weight of a plan, a secret, a potential future she had already mapped in her mind where she would rise not by labor but by lineage, not by effort but by entanglement. And so, as the day waned and the Forrester offices grew quiet with the hum of machines powering down, Luna typed a text with the kind of calm only the determined possess, attaching a picture of the mask she had worn that night, the mask that held 1,000 unspoken sins, and sent it to Spencer with a message. It'll be our secret. And miles away, Will stared at the glow of his phone, his stomach turning with dread and desire, knowing that the past was not done with him, that the woman he thought had vanished into whispers was very much alive, very much plotting. And as the news of Luna's survival began to ripple through the undercurrents of Los Angeles, threatening to expose lies, ignite rivalries, and pull the Spencers, Logans, and Forresters into another storm of scandal, Taylor Hayes stood in the Forrester mansion balcony staring at the horizon, vowing that come what may, pregnancy scandals, mass photos meddling, grandfathers, or Ridge's maddening indecision, she would not let Brooke Logan win this time, not when she was this close, not when her future hung by a thread she was willing to strangle destiny with to make it hers. Taylor Hayes did not sleep that night. Her mind was a storm of half-spoken arguments and unvoiced threats as the pale moonlight filtered through the curtains of the Forrester guest house, each silver shaft of light illuminating the memory of Ridge's hesitant eyes when she confronted him, those maddening, infuriating eyes that had seen her pain yet dared to turn away toward Brooke once more. And so she paced like a woman possessed, whispering her vow to the empty room that she would not, could not, let toxic Brooke Logan worm her way back into the life that was supposed to be hers, not after everything Brooke had already destroyed, her marriage, her children's stability, her reputation. And now, with Thomas rallying behind her like a soldier ready to go to war for his mother's right to be chosen for once in a life where Brooke had always been the interloper, the usurper, Taylor felt a renewed heat in her chest, a warrior's fire, and as dawn crept over Los Angeles, painting the sky in bruised purples and angry golds, she resolved to take matters into her own hands, to become not the passive victim of Ridge's indecision, but the architect of his final choice. And across town, Brooke Logan was already sipping her morning tea in the Logan estate, confiding in Hope Logan that Ridge was being manipulated, that Thomas had turned his mother into some kind of martyr, painting Brooke as toxic when in truth it was Taylor's insecurities poisoning the well, and Hope, though weary of this never-ending triangle that had cast shadows over her entire life, admitted that Ridge had always been drawn to her mother, that destiny was a word they had used too many times for it to be coincidence, and so, as mother and daughter strategized on how to remind Ridge of the life they once built together, Thomas was in the design office firing off text after text to his father, reminding him of promises made, guilting him with images of the family portrait they had taken weeks ago, painting a future where Taylor stood by his side at family dinners, while Brooke lurked on the edges like a ghost that never stopped haunting, and all the while Spencer sat at his desk in Bill Spencer's mansion, staring at the picture Luna Nazoa had sent him, the mask, the memory, the threat wrapped in one pixelated whisper, and the more he stared, the more the room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in with the weight of that secret, because Electra Forrester, with her bright ambitions and unsuspecting smile, had no idea that the woman she was beginning to suspect might be dead was not only alive, but scheming. And in that very moment, Luna herself was perched at Lee Finnegan's kitchen table, stirring her coffee with the calm precision of a cat who had already decided which mouse to play with next, ignoring Lee's latest lecture about double shifts and steady incomes, because Luna had already calculated a future where she wouldn't need to punch clocks or beg for rent. She would become a Spencer. And if her hunch was correct, if the flutter in her belly and the box beneath her bed were to be believed, she already carried the key to that future, a child that could bind her to the powerful family forever. And so she drafted a second message to Will, one not yet sent, one that hinted at the consequences of secrets buried too deep and miles away. Ridge Forrester walked the halls of Forrester Creations with the weight of two women on his shoulders, each representing a lifetime of choices, mistakes, rescues, betrayals, and half-finished love stories. And he found himself staring at the same staircase where years ago Brooke had fallen into his arms, where Taylor had once walked away with her head high, and he wondered how many more times he would stand here paralyzed, while in the shadows Thomas watched like a hawk, ready to swoop in with another reminder of Brooke's past, another whisper of Taylor's stability. And as the day unfolded with meetings that meant nothing and phone calls that blurred together, Taylor appeared in his office once again, this time softer but no less determined, touching his arm, her eyes glistening as she said, "I know you feel pulled, Ridge, but think of our children. Think of the foundation we can give them. Think of the nights Brooke chose herself over you, the times she let you down when you needed her most. I won't do that, I never have, and I will not let her do it again." And her voice cracked just enough to remind him of the woman who had stitched his wounds in the dark when the world had turned its back on him. And yet, even as he held her gaze, the memory of Italy haunted him, the water glistening off Brooke's hair, the breathless moment after he pulled her to safety, the way their hands fit together as if time itself had bent to their will. And so he said nothing. He simply turned away, leaving Taylor to stew in a silence that felt like defeat, though she refused to name it as such. And in that silence, across the city, Katie Logan stumbled upon Will's phone buzzing on the counter, the image of the mask flashing for a split second before the screen dimmed, and her heart skipped, because she knew that mask. She had seen it on security footage months ago, tied to a night no one wanted to talk about, and suddenly the Logan-Spencer Forrester battleground grew another front, one wrapped in secrecy, pregnancy, and blackmail. And as evening fell once again, Taylor stood at her balcony whispering to the wind that she would fight this fight not just for love, but for survival. Because in this town, in this family, only the relentless ever truly won. And Brooke Logan was nothing if not relentless. But this time, Taylor vowed she would be more. Relentless still. Taylor Hayes found herself gripping the mahogany edge of the Forrester living room table as though it were the only thing tethering her to reality. Her knuckles white, her breath shallow, because every tick of the clock felt like another inch of ground Brooke Logan was reclaiming in Ridge Forrester's heart. Every whispered conversation in the hallway, Every vague promise Ridge refused to make was a thread unraveling the engagement she had fought, pleaded, and yes, even manipulated herself into. Believing was unshakable, and as she stared out at the sprawling Los Angeles skyline, she saw not city lights but battlefields. Italy's moonlit waters where Ridge had rescued Brooke. Forrester Creations' sterile offices where Thomas now planted seeds of loyalty on her behalf. The Logan mansion where Brooke and Hope Shirley schemed over their tea, like queens plotting a restoration. And so Taylor, who had spent years cultivating the image of calm, reasoned maternal virtue, now allowed herself to lean into something darker, something raw, whispering to herself that love was war and war was never won by the meek. And across town, Brooke Logan was wrapping her silk robe tighter around her frame, eyes narrowed at her reflection as she replayed Ridge's hesitation. The softness in his voice when he said he didn't want to hurt Taylor, but also didn't want to continue a life built on obligation. And Brooke, seasoned by decades of heartbreak and victory, knew that hesitation was her opening. That destiny, her favorite word, their shared mythology, was not dead but dormant, waiting for her to breathe life into it with a well-placed reminder of their history, their children, the times he had chosen her when the world told him not to. And so she summoned hope and whispered plans that felt both maternal and strategic, plans to draw Ridge back not by force but by inevitability, by being the Brooke he always came home to when the storms cleared, while elsewhere, in a much darker corner of Los Angeles, while Spencer sat in the glow of his phone like a man staring into a loaded gun, the mask image from Luna Nozawa burning into his retinas, the cryptic text, "It'll be our secret," curling around his chest like a serpent, and the more he stared, the more he saw the night that started this spiral. The masks, the anonymity, the thrill, the mistake, and now, the possibility of something more. Something that could ruin everything with Electra Forrester if it ever surfaced, because Electra was already sniffing at the edges of the truth, asking questions that were becoming harder to answer. And Luna, far from remorseful, was sitting cross-legged on Lee Finnegan's pristine bedspread, pregnancy test hidden under a throw pillow, smirking as she scrolled through Will's hesitant responses, each one a little more panicked than the last. And she whispered to herself that men like Will didn't deserve to make choices. They needed to be pushed, cornered, tied down with secrets and consequences until they stopped running. And in her mind, she saw a future where the Spencers stopped treating her like a passing inconvenience and started treating her like family. And if it took a baby to do that, then so be it. And Lee, oblivious to the storm brewing in her niece's womb and mind, was on the phone with a colleague discussing shifts, unaware that Luna's fantasies were turning into plans that involved manipulating Will, leveraging that mask, and turning a one-night secret into a lifetime claim. And while these silent wars brewed, Ridge was in Eric Forrester's office, running his fingers through his hair, torn between two legacies: the wild, consuming fire of Brooke Logan and the steadier, wounded heart of Taylor Hayes. And Eric, for all his health concerns and weariness, didn't hold back his opinion, warning Ridge that history had already written this story too many times, that marrying Taylor out of guilt would damn them both. But Ridge, ever the pendulum, swung back to the memory of his children, the stability Taylor promised, the way Steffi had looked at him when he slipped that ring on Taylor's finger, and Thomas, like a phantom at his shoulder, appeared to remind him how Brooke had broken him before, how her so-called destiny always came at a cost. And so Ridge left that office no closer to a decision than when he entered, the weight of decades dragging behind him like a bridal train stitched from every broken vow he'd ever made. And as twilight draped the city in bruised violet, Taylor prepared her next move, a private dinner with Ridge at the Cliff House where she would remind him of the life they almost had, where she would wear the dress he once said made her look like the future. And across the city, Luna pressed send on another text. This one not a picture, but a promise. "You'll see me again soon, Will. And when you do, everything will change." And Will, heart pounding, glanced toward the door where Katie Logan's shadow lingered, her motherly instincts already sensing the rot beneath the surface, and the Logan Spencer Forrester triad braced itself for a collision it didn't even know was coming. And at the heart of it, Taylor Hayes whispered once more into the dark, "I will not let Brooke win. Not this time. Not ever." Even while the world conspired to remind her that in Los Angeles, fate has a way of breaking promises and rewarding the tenacious.